recorded, so I'm going to go ahead and start it now. And first thing I want to start off with, guys, is everything that I'm going to tell you guys today is probably maybe things that you guys have already heard before. And it's stuff that's actually pretty easy. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's stuff, but it's also stuff that nobody's doing. Or maybe like the top 1 or 2% people here in not just our city, but our state, but honestly, the entire nation in our industry. So if you guys know me, you know that I love quotes. I love um, uh, stats, and I wanted to share this with you guys today. So I just posted this 2 days ago, and it really spoke to me because it says what's easy to do, it's also easy not to do. So everything I'm going to teach you guys today, it's great news. Everything is super easy, but it's up to you on if you're going to do it or not do it. So we get started here, guys. A couple of things I want to identify before we do. My plan is to, at the very end of this, what I would like to do is I would like to do a mock business plan as I do with loan officers and agents here. And I remember when I got in the business in February 1st of 2018. Um, I kind of hit the ground running. I just started calling a bunch of people, and I was one of those loan officers that an agent would call me and would say, "Hey, what happened with that lead?" And I would be like, "Actually, I was about to call him today." Right. And I actually heard an agent tell me that this week that she called her lender and they did the same exact thing. And they said, "Would you have ever called them if I wouldn't have called you?" You know, that's what she was thinking. And I told her, I was like, no, they wouldn't have, because the reality is that most people are very reactive, but they're not being proactive. Now, I was very blessed when I started in the business. I thought that I was ready to make zero money. I had about $30,000 in my savings accounts, and I was planning to make zero that year. Well, thankfully, I didn't have to touch that, and I was very blessed. But come year two, um, the question was, what's my goal going to be this year? Because the first year was kind of really hard to tell because I didn't really know, what was, if I was going to drain my savings and maybe have to go do something else, or if I was going to, do decent or do really good. I had no idea. Well, after my first year, I kind of had a good idea of kind of where everything was at. And but I still couldn't identify what my goal was going to be. For at this point, it was going to be 2019. And that's problem number one, is that most people don't know their goals. If you ask any agent, and that's, a challenge for you guys, ask any of your agents that are not on this call, that just say, hey, what's your goal for next year? If you ask 10 people, chances are that 9 of them are going to be like, I have no idea. I have no idea. And then the other 10%, which is the one person that tells you what their goal is going to be, which it was me. That I was part of the 10% at least. Like I'm very goal driven. And so I was like, I have to have a goal. So I said, I want to double what I did this year. Right. So when you ask somebody, hey, what's your goal for next year? They're going to give you a number, right? And I'll identify how people in our business, whether you're a loan officer, whether you're a real estate agent, how people normally identify that goal. And I said, I want to double my business. Now, here's the tricky part, that only like the 1%, not 1 or 2%, but only the 1% of people know. And that is, if they give you a goal, you say, how are you going to get there? And most people, unless you're top of that 1%, they are going to have no clue. They're going to say things like, I'm just going to work hard, or they're going to say something like, I'm going to just do a bunch of open houses, or I'm just going to meet with a bunch of agents, or just like a cliche answer like that. And I say cliche because, uh, it's something that a lot of people say is in our industry. But just a reminder, and this is a reminder to myself because I told myself, I remind myself every time I use that word. A cliche is actually something that it's labeled as a cliche because nobody ever does it, right? There's no action behind that. So if there's some action behind that, even if it's not a cliche, even if you're doing those open houses, you're meeting with agents, you're making your calls, whatever, that still doesn't like tell me exactly how you're going to get there, right? Imagine if we change this to, we change this to hey, what's your goal next year for your fitness level or like your fitness goals, right? And most people are gonna be like, I have no idea. And those people that say, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to get stronger, or I want to do this or that, the people that you say, how are you gonna get there? They're gonna tell you, I'm just gonna go to the gym, right? That's a super easy answer, but it's still not like it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get to that goal. So that the reason I'm sharing that with you is because my goal today is to make sure that not only you know how to identify your goal, but that also you know how to get there, like what you need to do in order to be able to get to that goal and not just say, I'm just going to the gym. And then, 3 months in, you're just going to the gym every day and you're like, have lost 1 pound. Like nobody's going to be motivated by that. So, just want to, I want you to ask yourself this question. If you're in I know some people are, doing this with other people in the room, so just ask this to yourself. Just say, which one am I like I have no idea where my goals are at? Do I know exactly what my goal is going to be, and is it a legit goal? Because half of the time when people tell me what their goal is, they're just kind of guessing. They're just like, I would say 1 million more or 5 million more, whatever. And then, or are you the person that knows your goal and you know exactly what you're going to do to get there? So now we have some problems, we have some solutions, right? Here's, and I would recommend, and anybody that's on this call, if you email me, DM me, on any social media platform, the word slides, I can send you this. So instead of having to take pictures of it, or this is also being recorded, so it'll be sent out to anybody that registered, anybody that's on the live call. So that way you can fully pay attention. But if you have a pen and paper and you're actually taking notes, I would challenge you. And this is coming from a guy that does not like to write notes. I can barely read my handwriting, so I hate taking notes. But there's very like little times where I actually do, because whenever you see something, it can connect with you. But whenever you write it down, it actually kind of like really stays with you there. So I challenge you, if you have something to write with, to write these things so you can kind of start. Especially if you were one of the one or two right here that you're like, I don't know my goals. And then maybe you do, but you don't know how to get there. I challenge you to write these solutions right here. Which first one is going to be identifying where your business comes from. And that sounds so easy, but it's not as easy as people think it is, because every time that I do these business plans with one-on-one with an agent, with the loan officer, um, what happens is I tell them, they say, what do I need to come to be prepared? And I said, bring all of your closings for the last 12 months, where they came from, all your leads. I give them a list of like, this is what you need to bring. Well, most people, what they do is they'll just bring, like from the MLS, like they're able to see like, oh, hey, in the last 12 months, I've been able to close 20 deals or 12 deals or whatever for this amount. Um, and then and then live, as they're sitting in my office, they are saying, I say, so where did this come from? And then they're kind of going through and they're trying to remember. If you're doing that, you're really not identifying. You're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. Like you're just like, taking each deal. You're being reactive. You're not being proactive, right? Now, the other thing I want to mention on that is you have to truly identify where your business is coming from. And what I mean by that is that today in the mock that I'm going to do, there's going to be 4 buckets. The buckets are going to be geared towards agents. So the first bucket, which should be for both lenders and agents, is going to be COI. Center of influence. Number 2 is going to be open houses. A lot of agents do that. For lenders, it could be, realtor partners. And then number 3 is going to be FISBOs for sell by owners, or cold call list there. And then the last one is going to be marketing/social media. It's 2025, guys. 2024, we're pretty much 2025. We have a couple weeks left. Um, Social media, this is not a social media class, but I'm just saying social media is something that if you want to succeed, you have to adapt to it. You have to be out there in order for people to see you. Or else it's like you not making your calls, you're not sending your text messages, you're not doing the things that you need to be do to get to the places that you say you want to go, right? So there's a lot of people that sit across from me. I just did one, excuse me. I just did one. I would last week. I did one last week, and then the agent that I was doing it with, she said 90% of my business comes from COI, and I go, okay. I go, tell me a couple of people that you helped, and she was like, well, one of them was a girl I went to high school with. I go, okay. I go, do you go to church with her now? Do you like, how often do you see her now? And she goes, I mean, I don't really see her very often. That's probably the first time I've seen her since we graduated. And I go, really? And I go, you think that that was COI? She goes, yeah, I went to high school with her. She was my center of influence. And I said, do you feel like you're active on social media? And she goes, not as much as I need to be, right? And I said, well, I follow you on Instagram and Facebook, and I see your stuff all the time. Maybe she doesn't post like a lot of real estate stuff, but she's pretty active on the stories. I know that she, is always doing stuff with her kids. She actually likes to do cold plunges like I do every morning. She likes to uh, she does open houses and she posts those, etc. there. And I said, how did that high school friend reach out to you? She said on Facebook Messenger. And I said, you really think that was COI? And she goes, yeah, it was COI. I went to high school with her. I said, let me ask you this. You don't think that you're active on social media, but let's say that you would have decided to uh, delete your Facebook, delete your Instagram, delete all your social media platforms a year ago. Do you think that you would have closed her? She goes, well, actually, I don't think I would. And I go, okay, well, then that's not COI. That is a social media lead. Even though you're not paying for ads, even though you're not putting out content every single day, the only reason that person reached out to you, even though they're part of your center of influence, is because you were top of mind and they saw you on social media. So that's something that I want you to let it sink in. Is anytime that I think we've all been there, that you're scrolling through social media and then you see like an old friend, an old coworker, somebody you went to college with, or somebody you used to go to church with, or whatever. They just closed on a home, and then you just get like mad. You're like, why did they not reach out to me? Right? Like, and you get offended. And it's like, well, you should be mad at yourself rather than be mad at them, because what makes you think that they remembered what you even did? For all they know, you're probably doing something else now. But if you're top of mind and you're constantly reminding people what you do without having to remind them, if that makes sense. Number two is tracking everything. A lead is a name and a number of somebody that you get. I just got a text right before this of somebody that's actually on the call, and they said, "Hey, I have this person reaching out to you. Let me know what they say, blah blah blah." And I said, "Hey, what's their phone number? Would love to, put them in my CRM so I can remind you in case I don't call, or if you want me to call them, let me know. I'll be happy to." And the reason I do that is because if I have a name and a number, that counts towards my lead goal, right? I track my leads every single day. My goal is to get 50 leads a month, and I check that every single morning. So this morning I'm at 25 leads and I'm on track for 78 for the end of the month. And currently that's at a 16% conversion. So the conversion rate is a little bit low, but that keeps me top of mind of like, do I need to go out there and get more leads, or do I need to work the leads that I have right now so we can convert them? But the reality is that not many people are tracking their leads. Excuse me, guys. I got sick right before Thanksgiving. The last webinar that I did, the next day, it actually worked out perfect. The next day after the webinar, I couldn't talk at all. Like couldn't talk at all. So that happened perfect. And then this time it kind of came back around me. I'm like, I already got sick once. Like what is going on here? So I apologize if I keep coughing. But I want to make sure that I came on here and still was able to add some value to you guys. So this coming year, if you get anything out of this at all, is think anytime that you get a lead, anybody that says you're at a baby shower and somebody says, "Hey, my neighbor's actually looking to move, and I told them that you were my friend and you're an agent." And most people say, "Awesome, thanks for referring me." And then you keep going on with the baby shower, you forget about it, they'll probably never call. When you are tracking your leads and you have a goal to get to, you are being more proactive because you're going to be more of like not necessarily aggressive, but you're going to be proactive. You're going to be more of like, "Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for referring me. What's their name?" If you don't want to ask for their phone number, you could just easily say, "What's their name?" and you can add them to your social media, right? Maybe and then that's the top of mind for them like, "Oh, hey, Susie told me that that was an agent. So let me add her," right? You're getting closer to that being an actual lead when you know whenever you're tracking your leads, you're gonna know where your business comes from. You're gonna have zero question about it, and you're gonna be able to know what your conversion rate is, which that's a big important thing in this as well. Also, for those people that join a little bit later, I know I joined about a minute or two before. If you guys have any questions at all, my goal is to have 5 minutes at the very end of this to kind of answer those questions. So feel free to drop them throughout the call, and then I'll go back to those as well on that chat box or the Q&A or whatever. Um, Now, the other thing, solution two, number two is tracking your activity as well too, because a lot of the times people just are kind of flying by the seat of their pants when it comes to like, I'm gonna go to the office. What are you gonna do? Um, Call people. Who are you gonna call? Right? How many calls are you gonna do? How many calls did you do last week? And I know that this seems like it seems like so much, but guys, it's basic stuff that can be done. It's easy to do it, it's easy not to do it. But unless you truly know that, going back to the fitness goals that we were talking about, unless you truly know, like unless you're weighing yourself at least once a week or every day, like you know where you're at. Maybe you're not one of those people that wants to weigh yourself every day, which that's totally fine. Like I just showed you that I track my leads every single day. You're like, that's crazy. Like I could never do that. That's completely fine. But can you tell me at least once a month how many leads you've gotten for the month? Just one time. Just tell me, hey, end of the month, how many leads did you get this month? Because 99% of people can't tell me that. Can't tell anybody that because they're not tracking it. Now, whenever you're able to track your leads and you see where they're coming from, you're able to kind of see like what's working and what's not. Because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are doing open houses and they're getting nothing for it. I had a girl back in 2020 that started, and by the end of the year, that same year, and you guys know if you've been in the business for a little bit, 2020 was a good year. She got out of that business that same year because she like didn't close anything, and she was super frustrated because she was like, "How excuse me." She goes, I just don't understand how I haven't closed anything when I've done 1 to 2 open houses every single month and nothing has come from it. And I go, okay, so that was gonna be my first question. You haven't closed anything from those open houses, right? She's like, no, I haven't closed anything. I said, how many pre-approvals do you have from those open houses? She goes, what do you mean? And I go, like leads that you got that are pre-approved, but they just haven't purchased. She goes, zero. I go, how many leads have you gotten? She goes, I don't know. She goes, maybe like 10, which she was just guessing. And I go, okay, so you've done an open house once or twice every single weekend. Let's just say you've done 50 open houses, right? 52 weeks in the year. So 52 weekends in the year. Um, she's done at least 50 if she's doing 1 to 2 by this point. This was November. And I said, you've gotten maybe 10 leads. You don't really know. Zero pre-approvals and zero closings. I said, why are you still doing open houses? And she looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And she said, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And right, like in order to do business. And I go, well, you're supposed to be doing what's working, right? If you track that baby shower lead and then you happen to have another baby shower the next month and then you get another lead, that's telling me like, shoot, maybe I need to try to schedule more baby showers because that's where I'm getting a bunch of leads, right? That's of course being kind of silly there because not very many people get business from baby showers. But I'm saying is if you're tracking that, you're able to be smarter and if you work smarter, but if you work harder and smarter, I mean, it's a game changer. And then last but not least, to improve conversion rates, guys, follow up. If I have some time, I'll show you a little bit of kind of how our follow up works there. Identifying your source, guys. Again, making sure that you know what activities you're doing, like the baby shower, that have triggered those deals. Make sure that you're reflecting back on the people that you've already closed. I don't know if you guys know this, but for real estate agents, um, there was an NAR survey that went out there that said that only 17% of past sellers and buyers will use the same agent again. So you have 100 agents, each of them had a buyer or seller. Only 17 of those buyers and sellers are going to come back to the same agent. And part of the reason is because people are not in front of them. Those are activities that you can do. Like, hey, what do you do on Mondays? Mondays, I call all my birthdays for all but people, my leads, my uh, referral sources, my past clients, whatever, right? That's just something that you could do, right? To be in front of those people. You're not saying like, hey, are you ready to sell your house again or buy a new one? Whatever. No, you're saying happy birthday, happy anniversary, whatever that is. There's a couple of samples of the sources that we'll go over there. Um, Now, going back to tracking the activity, if you really aren't tracking it, you can't improve it because you have no idea. Maybe you are improving it, but you're still not sure if you are because you're not tracking it. So make sure my challenge for you guys after this, after you identify your buckets, whether that's 2 buckets or maybe 4 buckets, figure out like, hey, what's a good activity tracker that I could set for myself to make sure that I'm being committed to my goals by doing what I can control. We can't control how much money we're going to make this month, right? Because even if we have a good pipeline and it's going to hit our goal, stuff could fall through. We can't control how many people we're closing. We could have, 12 closings this month, and let's say that's your goal, and then 4 of them could fall through. You can't control the volume, but what you can control a little bit more is your leads. But what you really 100% can control is your activity, guys. Make sure you're recording every lead. And a lead is anybody that you believe that you can close in the next 12 months. Okay. All right. So following up right here, guys, the other thing too that I wanted to touch on is CRM. Make sure that you have a CRM, or if you do a lot of Excel sheets, make sure that you do that. I would recommend a CRM because most CRMs are going to have follow-up technology that you're able to follow up on those leads, because that's really what you need to do. You don't want to have just 6,000 leads in a CRM that you never touch, or an Excel sheet. Something I do want to touch on is excuse me, is if you're at a company, especially if you've been at a different company before, even if you love your company as much as anybody else does, and especially if you're thinking about leaving. And the reason I say this is because I've been in the business 7 years now, and I've seen a lot of people, come and go through different companies. Is it stinks that you are probably already paying for a CRM that your company is offering. It's not super expensive. It's like $20 to $50. I'd recommend getting your own CRM so you can get what you like. And if you were to leave somewhere else, you have all your data there. Like that's how you can really, really protect your book of business right there. Consistent follow-ups. I'll show you guys a little bit of how those that impacts the conversion rates for across the nation. The average conversion rate for a agent is 8%. That means that you have to get 100 leads to close 8 deals. That's a lot. I would say if you're a pretty good agent, you're between 16 to 20. And any agent that we work with that sends us leads, my goal is to get them at 30% or above. And the only way you're going to do that is by following up. So if you're that type of agent that's getting a lead, let's say in an open house, you get 5 leads and you never reach out to them, or you reach out to them maybe one time, your conversion rate is going to either stay the same or is going to drop on that. So treat every single lead, even if you like, I know a lot of the times you talk to somebody and you're like, they probably won't get approved, or, you make your own assumptions, and just treat every single lead like it's going to be a closing for you. If you do that, that's going to go, it's going to be huge, guys. This is what I was telling you guys on when people tell you like they have a goal. The reality is that all 1, 2, and 3 right here is all the same, right? You can say, I don't care about volume. I just care about how much money I make. Well, if you get your 1099, your W-2 at the end of the year, and it shows an amount, let's say $100,000. In order to have earned that, you'll have had to close a certain amount of units or families and volume. Or if you're like, I don't care about money, I just care about volume, um, it all correlates to the same thing. So I want you to think of this as like a working team, and there's one team leader, and that team leader is what motivates you the most, right? So for me, helping families is what motivates me the most, right? Second is going to be volume, and third is commissions, right? I can say I don't care about money as much as I want to, but at the end of the day, if I'm helping, if I'm hitting my goal of the families that I want to help every single year, it's going to get me a certain amount of volume, and I'm going to get paid for that. So again, this is all the same thing. Pick your order and focus on that because that's what I want your goal to be. I don't want to ask you what's your goal and you say, well, my goal is to make $100,000, help 20 people, and do 5 million in volume or whatever. I just completely made that up. But you don't want to think of your goal like that. You want to have one thing in mind. You want to look at the peak up there and then know where you're going, right? You want to be like, okay, my goal is to help 100 families this year. My goal is to do $100,000 this year. My goal is to whatever that is, and then see what you need to do to get there as far as activities and as far as uh, leads, which that's really a hack on here. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump on doing one really quick so I can show you guys. All right, so I'm gonna kind of skip some of these right here. Again, anybody who's actually joined the call, not if you registered, but if you and just are getting the recording, but if you, which we have most of the people, we have about like 80% of the people that registered on here, which is great. But especially if you have your like the only way this is really going to work is if you have your stuff. So we really know, like I do this business plan every single year, ever since 2019. So going on 5 years, this is my fifth business plan that I've done for myself. But I've only done four of them that have really predicted what I was going to do and told me exactly what I needed to do because prior to 2019, I wasn't like prior to November 2019, I wasn't tracking anything. So I was just completely guessing. And this is most of the time what we're doing here. So let's say, for example, that somebody is doing a total of, let's just say 4 million, let's just say, and I'm uh, just completely just putting numbers on here right here. Let's say that this is for a realtor partner. For a loan officer, this looks the exact same. The commission rate's a little different because we get paid different. But let's say that on an average, I'm just going to put 80%. Let's say as an agent, you're making 80% of the 3% that you would get for selling or buying the house, right? Now, I want to identify really where your buyers and sellers are coming from because what happens a lot of the times is people come in after 1 year of having a good year and let's say they've helped 12 families or 15 families and they say, man, I can't wait to focus on just sellers next year. And I'm like, well, you've done 10 buyers and two sellers. Like, how are you going to do that? Because the reality is you got to realize what's working for you and what's not working for you so you can stop doing what's not working for you and keep doing keep doing what is working for you and not do what's not working for you. So here's where you kind of figure out, oh wait, maybe like I need to kind of keep working with as buyers come my way because that's where most of my income's coming from, most of my business. So let's go ahead and do, I don't know, we'll do 12 and 4. What does that put me at? 250. Most of the people on this call are local, but let's get this up a little bit higher. 285. Let's do it a little bit higher. There you go. We'll do $300,000 average sales price right here. So you did 13 closings last year, 4 million. So at an 80% conversion, that means that you were just shy of about $100,000 last year. Now, something that I like to put on here is there's people out there that are paying for Zillow leads, that are paying for marketing, which if it's working for you, great. But the only way that you know if it's working for you if you're tracking it, right? But that's just a side note. But let's say, for example, I have agents that have told me like, oh, I made X, Y, and Z last year. Let's just say $100,000, and then and they truly believe that. But I say, well, aren't you paying for Zillow leads? Yeah. How much are you paying for Zillow leads? 1,000 a month. And I'm like, okay, well, that 12,000 of that 100,000 already like just went out the window because that like you paid that like you didn't make that. And then they're like, well, that's only for my taxes stuff though, right? Like for expenses and stuff like that. And I go, no, like you didn't, like in my, depending on who it is, like I'll be, completely honest with them. But most of the time I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, you didn't really make 100,000 or whatever they tell me because, and that's just one expense. As agents, you know that you pay for probably a lot of gas money. You pay for signs, you pay for whatever, all this stuff. So make sure that you're tracking that as well, so you truly know. Because if your goal is to make 100,000, and let's say your goal is to make 96,000, and you're spending even 500 bucks a month, that's $600 or 500 bucks a month. That is going to be put you at like 90K because that's taking 6,000 right off the top there, right? So just something to keep in mind there. Now, number of staff members is good to have if you're growing a team, just to kind of see, where the commission is going as well too, because a lot of time you're having to use from your commission split to pay your team members and stuff. Now, this is the important part. Where did your business come from, right? You had 13 closings. Where did that come from? This is where people are mostly like start like kind of fumbling. They're like, I don't I would say most of them COI. Okay, all of them came from COI, and we started doing that dance that I told you about. I'm gonna go ahead and put, let's say that majority did come from COI. So let's say that 8 of them came from COI. Let's say that we had a couple of them that came from open houses. Maybe one of them came from physical expired, and then we had two that came from social media. Even though those two you thought they were COI because they went to high school with you or college or whatever, right? So when you identified that, if you can like this, I would say most of you guys after this call could go back to what you've done in the last 12 months, whether you've done 2 deals, whether you've done 20 deals, and truly remember, where did I get this lead from? And what was the true source of my business, right? Again, these buckets can change for you. I know there's some agents on here that don't do open houses. I know there's some loan officers here that don't. Uh, these don't pretty much. Uh, these aren't real buckets for them, right? Like maybe realtors is going to be one of your buckets there, but you should be able to easily identify this. Now, here's the hard part that even after this call, if you're going based off of memory, if you haven't tracked, this is the hard part is how many leads did you get for the year? This is what like most people can't tell me. So let's say here we got 15 leads. And then it's giving me a conversion rate right here. This conversion rate is pretty high, even though for a lot of people, COI is going to be the highest conversion rate, but that's still pretty high there. We'll just keep it there. Just it's going to be an overall. Let's say open houses, you got 30. That's 7. That's not a bad right there. FISBOs expires. Let's say that you got 21. There we go. And then let's say for advertisement, social media, you got 12. So that overall puts us at an overall 20% conversion rate. And this is super, super important, the overall, in order to be able to see what our projected business plan is going to be. What I like to do whenever I'm doing this is go over like what's your biggest weakness, how many hours are you working? Because if you identify your biggest weakness, then you'll really know what your top focus should be. If your biggest weakness is calling people, then you need to set a goal to call at least 5 people a week, 10 people a week, whatever, right? Like, and you got to, in order to get over that weakness, right? Like going back to working out, like if you know that your legs are scrawny, it's like you got to identify that and then be like, what are you going to do about it? Well, hey, I got to do 2 leg days a week instead of one, right? So, current hours working, this one's a big one because a lot of people are either one end of the spectrum or the other. They will either say, I'm not hitting my goals at all, and I don't know why. And then they're not even working like 30 hours, they're working like 15 hours. And then the other people are like, I'm crushing it this year. Like, I'm so busy. Like, I'm gonna make all this money, all this stuff. And I said, how many hours are you working? And they're like, I don't know, maybe like 60, 65, 70. And I'm like, dang, that's crazy. Like, I wouldn't want to. You can make as much money as you want to for the rest of your life, but you can never get time back. I once heard a guy say that his goal, he's already a multimillionaire. He said his goal is to be a billionaire. But he says, but I do keep in mind every single day that I'm probably going to be a billionaire by the time that I'm 70 or 80. And by the time I'm 70 or 80 and I'm a billionaire, I would give that up to be in my 30s again and not even be a millionaire because that's the only thing you can't buy. You can't buy time. So and this is something that I have to kind of preach to myself as well too, because I mean, the first year I told you guys it was a great year for me, but I mean, it was a lot of work and a lot of hours put in. And then yearly savings on here. By the way, a great way for you to track this because you don't clock in and clock out. Put everything in your calendar, even if you've already done it, so that way you can go back at the end of the week and be like, okay, this is uh, a solid number of how many hours I worked this week. Yearly savings. Most people don't save, especially in this business, and that is really what kills a lot of people and takes them out of the business. I'll call some agents and they're like, I got a part-time job. And I'm like, what happened? You were just killing it. And it's like, they just didn't save, so they really needed something to be able to pay the bills. So if you're putting away at least 20% or minimum 10% of your of what you're receiving, and I'm not talking about for agents out there, I'm not talking about what you're saving to pay your taxes at the end of the year. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a true emergency fund. So that way, if you go 1 month, 2 months without a closing, there's not a lot of pressure because you know that your stuff is taken care of. Now, we have about 5 minutes before any Q&A and stuff. So this is really the bread and butter here. If I ask you, what do you want your goal to be? Last year, you were a little short of 100,000 and you did about $4 million. Is your commission rate staying the same? Let's say it is staying the same. Um, what do you want to like how much you want to make, and then you say, you know what, I would love to make 120,000. That way, if I fall short a little bit, I'm at least making 120,000. And also to cover my expenses as well, because I'm still going to be paying Zillow $500 a month or whatever the expenses are. So okay, so then we're going to do, all right, you are going to be making 120,000 next year. And then let's talk about what your average sales price will be. This year was 307,000. I always like to do 3 to 5% appreciation. Houses are going up all the time. That's why real estate is such a great investment. So we're gonna do, let's say 320 to 325. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because if you end up doing higher or lower, so I'm going to go lower on that end because if it comes in higher, it'll be easier. So I'm going to do 320. You're predicting that your purchase price is going to go up to 320. And then last year you had 90% buyers, 10% sellers. So being realistic of what you need to focus on. So here I would probably put 13 and 3. And then same thing here. We're doing 100,000 here. Let me see here. 500. Boom. There we go. That's adjusting it because our goal is to be 120,000. So it's adjusting this right here. So you can actually, if you hit the goal, you're truly going to hit that. So it's putting it up a little bit there. So now, if you tracked everything over here, I'm going to ask you, where do you want your business to come from? And then you should already have a good idea. Like 62% of your business came from COI last year. 15% of it came from open houses. Maybe your goal was to do 3 open houses a week this year, but you realized that was only 15% of your business. So you really need to be putting your time and effort somewhere else. Maybe like COI. Where truly did those 8 deals come from? Maybe they all came from your mom, and maybe you just need to take your mom out to lunch and coffee all the time, right? Or no, but like the reality is that out of those 8, you'll be like, well, man, 4 of those came from the girl that I go to church with. And so maybe you need to be in front of her all the time in order to be able to keep getting more deals. Like just identifying it there, right? So let's say right here we have, for the sake of time, we're just going to put, I want 60% of it to come from, actually, let's do 70% to come from COI. Open houses, let's get that up to 20. Facebook expires, let's say you don't really like those, so you're going to do 5. Actually, let's go 10 and we're going to do 15 because social media, you can get leads there and everything. So we got 5 minutes left, guys. I don't see any questions on the chat there. So if you do have any questions, make sure that you put them down right there. So that way I know exactly, I got 4 minutes now. But this right here, aside from like all this other stuff that I like to kind of go over in a true business planning meeting that I do for agents and lenders, is you now know what your goal is. because you've identified what you've done the last 12 months, right? This is what I did this year. So based on what I did this year, I know that it's pretty realistic that I can do 120,000 a year. And because what happens is a lot of the times, like we have brand new agents that are saying like, I want to do 100,000 this year. And the job that I came from, I was doing 40K and I've never done this before. And I'm like, I mean, are you sure you want to do that? Because like, you know, that you don't want to set yourself up for failure there. But then once you have the goal, in this case, whether it's 120,000, whether it's 5 mil, whether it's 16 families, it's like, what do you do to get there, right? And then and most of the time, people are just staring at the mountaintop. They're staring at like, how in the world am I going to get there? It's so hot out here. I'm so hungry. I'm so dehydrated. Like, how am I going to get up there? And it's like when you reverse engineer it and you take a look at out of these buckets, this is what you need to be looking at every single week, right? And your goal right here, if you tell me that you want to do $120,000 a year based on everything that we know about you, everybody's going to be different. Your goal every Monday when you start your work week or every Sunday should be to get two leads, a name and a number every single week. Name and a number that you can close in the next 12 months. That's if I lock you in a room and say you can't leave this room until you get me a contract, you're probably going to be there for a while. If I say you can't leave this room until you uh make at least 10,000 in commissions, might be in there for a while. But if I say you can't leave this room until you get two leads, all you need is a phone to get on social media, to call people, to text people, whatever. Get those two leads. And if you have a week where you can't get those two leads for whatever reason, you have until the month. Can you get seven a month? If you get at least seven a month, you'll get 78 a year. So if you get 2 weeks, two leads every single week, seven a month, you'll get 78 a year. At a 20% conversion rate, 78 leads will get you 16 closings. If your average goes up to at least 320,000, you'll hit $5.2 million. Even with a $500 current business expenses going out monthly, at an 80% commission rate, you will hit $120,000 a year, guys. So, I just got a question in there. We have a couple minutes here. I can send the Excel to anybody that reaches out to me via email or DMs and stuff. I can definitely send that over to you guys. And if you guys have any help on that, let me know, guys. This is pretty much my time here. I just hopefully all of that makes sense to you. But my challenge for you guys is to keep tracking and make sure that you identify where your business is coming from and know what you need to control, which is leads on here. And that if as long as you're doing that, you're going to have your best year yet because you're at least going to have some direction, right? And guess what? If I send this out to you and then it's completely wrong, you're like, well, my goal is to get two leads a year, and then I didn't hit my goal, and it's maybe because this is like 8%. There's your answer. But you'll have tracked everything to know everything. The last thing I'll show you guys is this. I have 1 minute right now. This is a little bit of kind of how I work my stuff. This is my CRM. Today I have 10 people that I know that I need to get to today in order to kind of uh, keep that conversion rate up. This is my lead report for the entire year. I'm at 595 leads for 35% conversion there. If you look at here are a couple leads that we've closed from some agents. This lead right here closed December 2nd of 2022, and we got this lead April 22nd of 2020. Took over 2 years to close this lead. Now we have another one, which is this one right here. This one we got March 12th of 2020, and we closed it May of this year. Took over 4 years to close this deal. Um, Follow up, it helps, guys. I promise you. And thank you so much for everyone that joined the call. If I can be of resource at all, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to add value to people, whether you're a lender or a realtor. I really am. I know that stuff always comes back around. So, and I'm proud of you, everybody who joined the call. I know everybody has a busy schedule, but a lot of people are already checked out for the year. So I'm proud of the people that joined the call to be able to make sure that you guys have your best 2025. Hope you guys and your family have great Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. See you guys at the next one.